Today we'll be fueling your addictions by looking at the stimulating world of pachinko combined with Japan-only games, and also why we, as humans, love the thrill of murder. We have had video games in the world long enough now to the point where some simply fall into obscurity. It's inevitable. For example, some games from Japan unfortunately don't have a big enough audience and are never published in the West. And it's a complex and expensive endeavour anyway, so ultimately, it's a risk. Thankfully, we have ways to learn about these hidden gems, or maybe some aren't so much gems, but they're still interesting to discover nonetheless. As I've said before, I self-studied Japanese in my teens instead of studying for exams in school, and during that time I would also browse for funny Japanese videos or let's plays instead of actually studying the language properly, so all around, frankly, I was a mess. However, it did mean that I stumbled upon some extremely intriguing games and films and music that I may not have found otherwise. Learning a language opens so many doors for you, especially in the world of media. I learned of Japan-only games such as Deca Voice and Shibai Michi for the PS2, both games that uniquely use a microphone. I may do a video with them sometime. And other titles such as Segara Ichiri, perhaps the strangest PS1 game out there, Gakko o Tsukuro, Romania, Tokimeki Memorial, Omiai Commando, Boku no Natsuyasumi, and also some random freeware games like Shobon no Action. So many video games like this have been collected and stored in my little brain, but one of my absolute favourites and at the forefront is a series called Sanyo Pachinko Paradise. Games that are pachinko simulators? Pachinko. Legal loopholes, overwhelming colours, loud noises and Yakuza? I'll get to exactly how pachinko is played in a minute, but first it's important to note that gambling is illegal in Japan. Yet pachinko parlours have intriguingly found a way around it, and it's simply seen and treated as an amusement activity, because risking losing money is really fun. During my research, there's actually quite a lot of conflicting information as to where pachinko derives from. Many sources link it to the Corinthian game or bagatelle. The most convincing to me though is that pachinko's ancestor is some sort of British vertical machine, and I'm not just saying that because I'm British. Of course, game machines like this develop over time. There's not necessarily a clear road from one to another, but the pachinko that exists now is electronic, fairly noisy and chaotic. However, it still draws in millions of people. Keep in mind though that it is an 18+ activity, so if you're a child, don't even think about it. In the early 50s, after World War II, pachinko became an established form of entertainment for society, and there were even so-called pachinko booms. The history of pachinko in general is fairly rocky, with multiple bans and even problems with organised crime and hackers. But no matter the criticism and challenges, the industry prevailed, especially with the introduction of electronic machines in the 80s. At its peak, pachinko was bringing in upwards of 30 trillion yen. That's a lot of money. That's almost enough to buy all the rare PS2 survival horror games like Kuon, Roll of Rose and the one with the girl and the really adorable dog. But with such a huge amount of the population playing comes the increase of addiction and negativity. A confused British news reporter overlooks the scene in Nagoya in the 60s, using words like hypnotic and mind-numbing, saying that many of the population have contracted this disease, i.e. a pachinko illness.
It lures them and hypnotizes them all.
I can't lie though, the atmosphere to me is quite fascinating. Of course, it also has its appearances in media around the world, like in this episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where a new pachinko machine gets put in the juice bar and then they have to defeat the pachinko head monster.
Once and for all, you make a shiny pachinko ball!
And a quick note on the language. Pachinko is a combination of the words pachin, which is an onomatopoeia similar to kaching in English, and ko is simply a suffix. It is also named gachinko or pachi in other areas. Pachi means spluttering, clapping, crackling, blinking, sputter, clap, crackle and blink, apparently. So there you have it, pachinko. The basic rundown of pachinko is that you pay to get a full tub of these little iron balls. In most cases it's 4 yen per ball, so let's say 500 yen for 125 balls. Using the knob, you turn it to control the power at which the balls are shot into the machine. This process used to be simpler, more like a handle that you would press down and shoot one at a time. In most cases you lose balls, but upon getting a ball into the open slot, called the start chucker, it triggers cymbals to spin like a fruit machine and it initiates a chance for a jackpot. Once a jackpot is hit, a large pocket called the attacker opens for a limited time, and each ball that lands inside pays out a predetermined amount of additional balls. To summarise in one sentence, you put balls into the machine in hopes of getting more balls out of the machine. Now, count how many times I say balls. If you end up with more balls than you started with, you can exchange your winnings for prizes. Now here is where the legality of it all comes in. Converting the balls directly into cash on the premises would constitute as gambling, which is why you get tokens instead. You can then take them to a separate building nearby to exchange for cash, or you can purely obtain other prizes like snacks or cigarettes with your winnings, or even electronics, I think. Unfortunately, or maybe not so unfortunately, pachinko has been on a general downward trend for many years, with other leisure activities becoming popular and younger players perhaps not seeing the appeal. On the other hand, you may have also heard of Pachi Slot, which is a newer machine that doesn't utilise steel balls, and is much more comparable to a standard slot machine. Many video games have Pachi slots based on them, such as Resident Evil, Metal Gear, Silent Hill, Persona 4, etc. And there are also online versions, which is why the popularity of standard pachinko may be declining. This pachinko simulator series I mentioned, Sanyo Pachinko Paradise, which was renamed to PachiPara in 2005, was developed by Irem Software Engineering from 1999 to 2013 with 17 main titles, with some extra games sprinkled on the side. You may have heard of Irem before, as they are known for many hit arcade games, such as Kung Fu Master and the R-Type series. In 1974, Kenzo Tsujimoto founded IPM, which later became Irem. In the end, he was forced out, but all wasn't lost, as he ended up becoming the founder of Capcom. Irem became Irem Software Engineering in 1997, and even after a lot of financial troubles, they ended up making more games in the R-Type series, Steamboat Chronicles, a firefighting PS2 game, and the Zettai Zetsume Toshi series, the first installment otherwise known as Disaster Report, or apparently SOS The Final Escape for PAL regions. I personally know it as Disaster Report, despite the fact I am very much in the PAL region of this world. Irem no longer make video games due to complications after the Tohoku earthquake. However, former employees went on to make a new company called Granzella, notably Kazuma Kujo, who I'll get back to later. No more Pachinko Paradise, but Granzella have made more in the R-Type and Disaster Report series. So, the ultimate question, why did I have this interest in a pachinko simulator series all those years ago? Don't worry, it wasn't because I was into gambling as a teen, it's simply because of gameplay videos and amusement. Specifically, games 12, 13 and 14 in the series caught my attention. The reason being because they had these really entertaining, unexpected bonus story modes, and I was hooked on the humour and gameplay despite not understanding it all. Even though earlier games in the series had basic appearances of story modes, Pachinko Paradise 8 introduced PachiPara Fuunroku, which translates to PachiPro Chronicles. This is where they really found their footing, and you'll be surprised at how well these particular Fuunroku story modes would stand on their own as RPGs, despite being actually fairly hidden behind Pachinko. Fuunroku grows into story modes that include romance, exploration, side stories, fishing, morning, afternoon, evening, night cycles, food to eat, furniture and clothing to buy, treasure to find, hilarious choices to make, and of course, pachinko to play. Collaborating with Sanyo, the machines throughout the series are based on Umi no Monogatari. Umi no Monogatari means sea/ocean story, and that's pretty clear with the fish and water and Marin-chan, who is a very popular character, if not the most popular pachinko character. So popular in fact that in very Japanese fashion there is a manga and anime adaptation. It doesn't feature pachinko at all, it is literally just an adaptation of the sea story from the machine. The manga and anime both released in 2009 and follows two mermaid sisters, Marin and Ulin, who live with the fishies. It's also no surprise that you can find a bunch of merchandise. I found goods like cards, stickers, keychains, confectionery, tissue covers, and even used pachinko machines themselves. Before the introduction of Fuunroku, the Pachinko Paradise series had humble beginnings. Sanyo Pachinko Paradise 1 from 1999 had this simple story focused around a college student who wants to become a professional pachinko player. Just your average childhood dream, really. It's likely a way to prompt you to play pachinko, but there are sound effects and visual novel elements reminiscent of something like Tokimeki Memorial, and you can travel between different locations to pass the time. The website has a few pieces of information, including screenshots and descriptions with phrases like, "Can you too become a pachinko expert? I'm not really sure if I can, but I'm certainly more of an expert now than I was before making this video." Most of the earlier games don't have much worth noting here, but I do want to point out that Pachinko Paradise 3 has a dog on the cover, and some absolutely amazing wallpapers. You're welcome. Also, Pachinko Paradise 4 features Gen-san, otherwise known as Hammer and Harry, which is another popular series from Irem's arcade era. Considering Harry already had some experience with Pachinko on the Game Boy in 1998, I'm not surprised. Sanyo Pachinko Paradise 6 marks the start of the games on PS2, a crucial era where Kazuma Kujo comes into the picture. So then begins the start of Fuunroku in Pachinko Paradise 8. Now you may be thinking, where does murder come into all of this? The first Fuunroku has this cute top-down style, and it throws you right in at the pachinko parlor after this screen of text explaining the story. 15 years ago, a pro pachinko player was murdered. His name was Tenro no Shige, my father. I don't know what the translation of that is, to be honest. To find the enemy, I set out on a journey, and before I knew it, I became a master pachinko player named the Silver Ball Wolf. Eventually, after learning about a man who knew my father called the Lightning Dragon, I went to the PachiPara town where he was said to be. At the time, a new super large pachinko parlor was soon to be opened. Intriguing stuff. The graphics in your bedroom utilising the first person view is really charming, and it's also no surprise that you can pursue romance with some of the female characters. Fuunroku 2 is a direct sequel of this, with Pachinko Paradise 11 finishing off the story with Fuunroku 3. Pachinko Paradise 10 features a side story with Gen-san making a return. Now I know that was a very brief summary of Fuunroku 1 to 3, but that's because to me, Fuunroku 4 to 6 are the most interesting to talk about, and you'll see why. Kazuma Kujo, at this point a producer, brought a lot of substance and humour to the series from this point on. In this tweet from 2017, he explains his inspiration at the time. Whilst at the house of a friend, after setting the strength of the handle at the start of the pachinko game, they said, I don't have anything to do for a while, and I was shocked to see them change the TV channel. That was the inspiration to make PachiPara Fuunroku. During development I called it PachiPro Life. Made from the ground up with the Steambot Chronicles engine, Fuunroku 4 features a new story not linked to the previous 3 Fuunroku games. It's a murder mystery named the Gintama Murder Case. It follows a main protagonist, either male or female depending on what you choose, being falsely accused of murder simply due to being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you attempt to prove yourself innocent, and one mystery leads to another. There's this live action opening that's very 2000s in style. Kazuma Kujo explained that this is only live action because everyone who could do CGI at the time of development was working on R-Type Final, so they entrusted the opening to someone who did filmmaking as a student. Very great use of talent and resources if you ask me. It turned out very cool, and plus, there's a cute kitty. Pretty much every Fuunroku has a live action intro though. They likely did this because of lack of funds, but live action openings have this charm to them. I really like the one for Fuunroku 6, where the guy actually floats down the river. Going back to 4, after the opening you are plunged into a rainy street, clenching your stomach in what looks like pain, and when you approach a seemingly closed pachinko parlor you get your first set of choices. This interactivity gives the character that little bit more personality. Do you go into the parlour to shelter from the rain? Do you think you heard something from inside? Or do you merely want to go in because you're just so damn eager to play pachinko that you feel like you don't have a choice? The dialogue choices can also give you hints to help you uncover the mysteries, a vital part to the gameplay. By the way, you're not in pain, you're just very, very hungry. When you break into the parlour, you are shocked by 2 bodies on the floor, one in a pool of blood. A woman also appears, screaming and accusing the protagonist of bloody murder. This is how we accidentally become a suspect, and naturally we are taken to the small neighbourhood police station. And to prove to you the hilarity of the series, you can tell the police officer that you did indeed conduct the murder and you are indeed the culprit. This gets you a well done and naturally, jail time. Then cleverly there are a few lines of thought from the protagonist wondering what would have happened if the day went differently, and it resets you walking up to the pachinko parlor once again.
もう一度人生をやり直せるなら、あの町に着いたところからやり直したい。
Telling the policeman the truth this time, you are eventually told that you can't leave the town until you prove your innocence. That's fair enough. You are also told that one of the 2 victims, the female, didn't die, but is unfortunately suffering from amnesia and is staying in the nearby hospital. I am personally not surprised that they chose the mystery genre here. Detective games and stories of whodunit are plentiful in this world. The time period, location, people don't matter. Mystery can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, including pachinko parlours apparently. Maybe not too surprising considering the very real links between pachinko and organised crime, but indeed I would say humans are very drawn to mystery. There's layers of curiosity, ambiguity, puzzle solving, and it's all very engaging. The combination of stimulation you get from video gaming and the dopamine from gambling, although dangerous, and mixing it with the intriguing nature of murder and mystery is very smart. I totally get why Irem was so damn eager and stubborn to make this work, despite there being doubts from onlookers. I'd also like to add that the currency in the series is dama, which means balls, as in pachinko balls in this case. So pachinko balls is the currency in this world, it seems, even though in real life they aren't allowed to be taken outside the parlours. The police actually give you 3,000 dama in spending money and a place to stay after releasing you from the station despite still being a suspect, which is very, very kind of them. Leaving the station and walking around the area, you get a sense of how much work they put into detailing the environments and making the area feel alive and lived in. Set in the Showa era, each citizen has a line or two of dialogue if you go up to them, and food is also required to stay energized, which, you know, you'll need if you're gonna go around proving your innocence and all. It doesn't actually take too long to prove your innocence, but after that, it focuses around you trying to find out who the real murderer actually is. Even though that is the overarching case, there are also many smaller cases too, some related and some not. One of the most amusing in my eyes is finding the location of a hidden pachinko parlour. In the end, you find out you have to do a certain pose in front of a gate to be allowed in. There are 7 poses, one for each day of the week as the game does go day by day. One pose you find by talking to this man who shows you his bowling skills, and another is a hero pose, and of course one is from Merlin-chan, which you can witness during a good old round of pachinko. Mysteries in the game are solved by piecing together the hints you find. The hints are represented by these clue pieces on the right, and you link them together on the left from the start question piece to the end conclusion piece. Successfully linking it from beginning to end means you have solved the mystery. Some pieces are also sneaky fake pieces, so you don't necessarily need to utilise all of them. This puzzle solving method was also improved and reutilised in Disaster Report 2. You can earn money to buy bigger apartments, buy furniture to place in those apartments, and buy clothing to wear in and around the apartments. You can also get a haircut. Even the fact that you can practically place items anywhere you want is a level of detail I highly respect. The immersion and depth creates this level of freedom which makes the game uniquely fun. The slogan of Kazuma's company Granzella is even "fun comes first," which I very much agree with. Fuunroku 4 has great dialogue with funny choices within immersive environments with day-night cycles, and you can play pachinko. There's an atmosphere that could compare to something like Shenmue or Yakuza, and you can play pachinko. There's thrilling detective work to do with a unique puzzle-solving aspect where you unlock hints as you talk to people and piece together the solution. And of course, you can play pachinko. Pachinko is not actually super necessary to play throughout the game as much as you would think. You have to play it here and there, and it's recommended if you want to earn money to buy things, but you can actually get through a lot of the story not partaking in it. Alongside pachinko, the series features a great extent of Japanese culture, which comes as no surprise, but it's another aspect of the series that I really enjoy. For example, in 4 there are many different restaurants selling Japanese meals, okonomiyaki, kushikatsu, ramen. There's a Bon Odori festival you attend in the middle of the story, where you can wear a kimono or yukata or happy and buy shaved ice and watch traditional dances. There's even some very impressive fireworks. There is also radio taiso to witness, i.e. radio exercises, an accessible and simple way to get people moving, and a common practice in Japan done early in the morning. It's also in Animal Crossing. You can pay to use the centaur, a public bathhouse, and gorkons take place, which are like blind group dates where you take the opportunity to get to know people, eat food, and drink. There's also this one specific gorkon where there is a glitch and the NPCs T-pose around the table. Unfortunately, despite all of this fun during Fuunroku 4, more people end up dying. It's an ongoing murder case after all. When we spend some time in the next town over and wake up one morning, someone is hanging from a tree. Quite a morbid scene for a game that has a cover like this. Also in the apartment next door, a woman is murdered. Later on, 2 more people are found dead on the construction site. To be honest, I'm more surprised it doesn't create a bigger commotion. The public are surprisingly very calm. Or the victims are found holding pachinko balls, another way they have weaved pachinko into the story. Ultimately, Fuunroku 4 is a hidden gem which laid such a solid foundation for the next 2 Fuunroku games to come. Imagination and experimentation when it comes to creation is a powerful tool. Irem's Disaster Report Series 2 took a theme like natural disasters and managed to make something entertaining and distinctive despite the heavy subject matter. The PachiPara series performed well, and even to Japanese people, the story modes were a bit of an enigma. Of course, I don't think anyone looks at this cover and thinks, ah yes, looks like a puzzling murder mystery, time to get solving. But the surprise, joy and entertainment that comes with the unexpectedness of these games is likely what made them viral on video sites like YouTube and the Japanese equivalent Nico Nico Doga. The series, predominantly Fuunroku 4, 5 and 6, amassed millions of views in the Japanese Let's Play community in the 2010s. After PachiPara 12's release in 2005, the subsequent games add a lot more to the Fuunroku story modes. Kazuma Kujo stated, "We wanted to try and one-up the status quo and make the series more significant. I admire the enthusiasm." Taking on making a pachinko simulator series with story modes that stand out and matter in the video gaming world is no easy task. For the next game, PachiPara 13 featuring Fuunroku 5, they slightly moved away from the full-on murder mystery genre, and this time it begins with the main protagonist worried about their future after graduating high school. Very relatable indeed. Whilst deep in worry, a girl from the same class, Sakurako, happens to be sitting near you and very abruptly asks you to play in a pachinko match for her in order to take back her family's car repair factory where they work and live. She lives with her dad and younger brother, and once you succeed in taking back possession of the factory, Sakurako asks you to then help her find her mother who left unexpectedly, which then opens up new locations. The puzzle solving aspect from 4 wasn't brought back, but honestly, the game is still quite the whirlwind, with events such as Sakurako's dad falling very ill, Sakurako finding out that he isn't her actual dad, then him falling ill again, and if that wasn't unfortunate enough, the factory burns down. There are a lot of emotional and heartfelt moments, which is not surprising as a lot of Kazuma's tweets are about how they wanted the game to portray life and particularly youth. Kazuma wanted to make a game where the protagonist witnesses various aspects of life, seeing different sides of the world like the rich and the poor, thinking, who do I want to be? How do I become what I want to be? He wanted the player to feel a range of emotions from worry to excitement with tense, bittersweet and thrilling scenes. The towns are influenced by places he lived and things he experienced as a child, including the chicken farm since he used to live next to one growing up. He stated, "As a student, I was fascinated by role-playing games with powerful stories and felt that video games would one day become a form of entertainment comparable to novels and movies." And right from the beginning, 5 has much more detail in the character selection than Fuunroku 4, and you even take a psychological test. There is a status display throughout the game which shows your points in luck, hunger and hygiene, and almost like a sim, you have to keep your human needs met in order to stay healthy, although in this case, staying healthy means that you play pachinko better. The game itself is also a lot longer, the map is much bigger, there's even a mini-map this time, and the choices you make in the story have more of an effect on how others feel. You can order more than one item of food, get your license to drive a car, ride a bike, take an aerobics class, eat dandelions and change the way you walk. You can run around like a ninja, if you wish. The game's art style is also slightly reworked with this sketchy look on the characters. If you thought there was a lot of passion radiating off Fuunroku 4, well, Fuunroku 5 really has buckets of it, and I think that's what drew a lot of people in, even if they weren't fans of pachinko. Of course, there is also a range of music, from lovely and charming melodies for the sweet moments, to the suspenseful and tense for the mysterious moments. For 5, Mai Ida had been brought in to make the theme song, and in the game you can also meet a woman singing and playing the song on piano. Thinking that the previous game's pachinko elements were a bit too weak, they raised the bar. Hence why this time you have a pachinko rank and there's a very stylish and cool challenge screen. You even meet a legendary pachinko pro called the Vampire. What's funny to me is that Let's Players of these games usually cut out a big chunk of pachinko, because 1, it's very repetitive, and 2, sometimes it takes a while to play. Sometimes you can even just leave it running and still win at the end of it. The Fuunroku games also include special moves, which you can collect and equip and then use during pachinko to help you succeed. For Fuunroku 6 in PachiPara 14, it takes place 4 years after the events of 5, and continues with characters old and new. The locations are the same, but the story is completely fresh and quite a bit stronger. After the previous title and a big pachinko victory, the protagonist was meant to leave the world of pachinko forever. However, it opens with a bunch of people coming after you as they believe the victory was rigged. You escape by falling into a river, hence the guy floating down the river shots in the opening, and then you are rescued by some friendly faces, and it turns out that they are part of a very amusing theatre troupe. You don't tell anyone what's happened to you, but they help you anyway, and you hide who you really are for a while. One of the girls you meet, Chinatsu, has a brother who wants to quit acting and play pachinko instead. Chinatsu despises pachinko, so this makes the fact that you are a famous pachinko professional yourself slightly awkward, and you hide that fact for the time being. Chinatsu's brother leaves the theatre and you end up taking his place in the upcoming show as a horse. Prior to performing, you need to make sure to learn your lines, although it's very amusing if you pick the wrong options. The big turning point for this game is once again murder. One of the girls in the theatre troupe is found dead in a grave turn of events. It's pretty shocking, but also it makes sense considering how much the games lean towards mystery and emotional story arcs. It really feels that by this point, Irem were really comfortable constructing their narratives, and therefore this game was improved and expanded upon in other areas. For example, instead of dandelions, you can now eat sunflower seeds. Unsurprisingly, the act of pursuing romance has been added to, as now there are many date spots to find, including the swimming pool. And swimming in the evening with the city views and the warm tones in the sky in the background offers a vibe like no other. The nostalgic feeling of the way the train passes through in the background when you play baseball, the cozy feeling when the rain falls, watching the cars calmly drive by, it all adds to the atmosphere. The game is also overflowing with summery vibes this time with Okinawa-themed pachinko machines. Some of the pachinko matches and winning conditions you stumble into are really amusing, for example a battle royale match against 7 members of train staff in order to stop them being on strike. Even though pachinko is much more prevalent in Fuunroku 5 and 6, it doesn't take away from the fun of the story, the fun of exploring the environments or talking with characters. There's so much more to the games than I've summarised, and this is very much reinstated in my mind that I think video games can be about absolutely anything, and you can make it work if you have the joy and passion for it. Kazuma has often said that he wouldn't personally be making more sequels, but I've seen responses on Twitter such as, it's a shame because from pachinko to the story, the games are very entertaining and fun as you can roam around the world freely. People also say that they would love a game that recreates the vibe of Fuunroku. PachiPara 14 was the last game for the PS2, and there are some PachiPara games on PS3, but there is an absence of story modes up until the 3DS games, and I don't think it was quite the same again. Ultimately, the low quality of these games by 2013 resulted in the end of the series. Irem were ambitiously releasing 1 or even 2 games per year from 1999 to 2007, but after PachiPara 14, their releases significantly slowed. I'm not really sure what happened. Even in this German PlayZone magazine, it notes how PachiPara 14 was in the top 5 of the Japan PS2 sales charts, which is crazy. I can imagine perhaps a switch from PS2 to PS3 at the time was quite challenging, and when the earthquake hit in 2011, this led to game cancellations and the closure of Irem's video game department. And that was to be the end of the PachiPara series. I'm not sure if the creators of Sanyo Pachinko Paradise ever envisioned having such an impact with their kind of silly yet ambitious pachinko story modes. I highly doubt they even think to this day that the fun of the games reached a teenage girl in the UK in the 2010s, but it did give me a lot of joy and motivation to continue learning Japanese, and now it just fills me with so much nostalgia, so I have been extremely happy to share this all with you. If you have ever heard of this series, let me know. Or even if you've heard of Irem in general, if you have a favourite game from them, let me know. And if not, I hope you have learned something new today. Thank you for watching. I have a Patreon open, all the good stuff. I love and thank all my supporters, and I am very grateful for you watching too. So, see you in the next video, hopefully. Bye!
勝負あり勝者